thought we would bring in Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. She is the owner and CEO of Lincoln-Goldfinch Law in Austin, and get her opinion on what's happening here. Kate, thank you for being a part of the program this afternoon.
Sure, thanks for having me.
All right, so DACA, and again, people are, it gets to be a heated discussion, again, on both sides of it. What is DACA in layman's terms, for those who don't understand?
So DACA was announced in 2008, and it's a program that says that people who are brought to the United States as children before the age of 16 who have graduated from high school and don't have a criminal record they receive deferred action, meaning they're not an enforcement priority for deportation, so they're protected from deportation, and it comes along with it a work permission, which gives them a social security number and they can work. Mm-hmm. And the program has now been in place for over a decade. It was announced under President Obama, and has been, in litigation in the courts. And this most recent decision yesterday, I'm sure you'll ask me about it, so I'll wait till you ask the question, but it was sort of the latest in a lot of up and down and back and forth with the case in the federal court system.
Well, I know that the Biden administration was trying to get this the program codified, but that apparently this decision will prevent that, at least from happening now. Is that what this decision does for this federal court?
So what happened before in the previous case, the main issue with the program was that when Obama announced the program, he did not follow the Administrative Procedures Act, which says that when the executive branch of government announces a new regulation, they must follow a certain process. So they have to, propose a rule and give time to the public to comment on the rule, and then they promulgate the final rule. And that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So what occurred was that the Biden administration 2 years ago actually did that. They took the DACA program just as it was. They didn't make any changes at all. And they said, okay, we're going to announce this rule, accept notice and comment, and then promulgate the final rule. So they did, and they cured what at the time was the main issue with the program in the lawsuit. And so once that had occurred, then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals remanded the case back to Judge Hainan, the federal court who decided the case yesterday. And he said, even though the federal rules process has now been followed, there are still some things I don't like about the program, and so therefore I'm going to hold that it is still illegal. And the things that he, the issues that he raised were, number one, that Dreamers can get something called advanced parole that allows them to travel for humanitarian, educational, or employment reasons. So that was one issue that Hainan took. The other was that there's no, known expiration to the program. So because of those issues, Hainan said it's still illegal, and what I will do is leave the injunction in place. And the injunction, what it does is it says that all of the Dreamers, there are about 500,000 Dreamers in the United States, who are currently in protected status, can remain in protected status while this case now goes back up through the court system. It's going to go back up to the Fifth Circuit, likely back up to the Supreme Court, and we probably won't have a final decision until 2025.
Wow. The justice system in this country does work slowly, if in fact it ever does work at all. So you say about 500,000 people are affected by this. Are the parents of those people also affected by it? Because we're talking about kids who at least started out under 16. Again, if this thing is 10 years old, they could be 26 by now. So how does that, how does that affect the number when you consider the entire family as part of the situation?
Sure. So the only recipients of the program, the benefits of the program, are the Dreamers themselves. And so they have to qualify. They have to have come before 2007. They have to have graduated or at least gotten a GED, and they have to, pass the background check and all of that. Their family does not benefit. If their parents are in the United States and they're undocumented, they receive no personal benefit from the program. And so these 500,000 people have now, many of them have been in the program for about a decade. And, it's just one thing to keep in mind about these young people is that, many of them feel more American than they do, than they have connections to their home country where they were born. Many of them were just raised here, and they have gone to college. In fact, half of them have a college degree. They have gotten married. They've had children. They have, purchased homes. They work in U.S. companies, and they're, valued employees of many U.S. companies, and they're very positively impactful on the economy. So it's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about the dreamers, because I think a lot of people, approach this from the angle of, well, what about the dreamers? What's in it for them? Or what's the perspective of the immigrant? But I like to also take a step back and look at, okay, how do we all benefit from this program? Because the reality is very clear that we do. And so, for that reason, I think Hanen decided wrongly, but I don't know, given the layout of the federal courts, what that will look like moving up. Since the last DACA case was decided in the Supreme Court, we've had a couple justice changeovers. And so at the end of the day, the program may be revoked. Meanwhile, what really needs to happen, I think we can all agree, is that Congress really does need to pick up this issue. And we're unlikely to see that occur, particularly in the year that we have a presidential election.
All right. In the title of it, obviously, deferred action for childhood arrivals, the deferred action obviously, I guess, refers to the fact that any action as far as deportation would be concerned is deferred down the line. So what is this for these kids who were here prior to 2007? Does that word even mean anything? I mean, is there a deferred action, and when would that kick in if there is a deferred action?
So deferred action is it's something that's used regularly in the immigration sphere, and it reflects the idea that the executive branch of the government, which oversees the Department of Homeland Security, is the agency that can decide, using its own resources, who are priorities for enforcement in this country. And obviously, usually they look to people who might have serious criminal histories or immigration violators who have recently come into the country, for example. And then they say, along this list of people, there's a group of people that we are not that interested in or going to spend our resources trying to deport. And when they officially announce a group, they can grant deferred action like this. And so that's what happened here is the government said, we are deferring any type of removal action against dreamers who would qualify under this program. So theoretically, if the program were to go away and we had an executive branch of the government who was interested in deporting all of the dreamers, then yes, they would take action. And what that action would look like is that all of these people would be placed into deportation proceedings before an immigration judge. And you guys probably know the court system is very overburdened as it is. There's over 2 million cases pending in the immigration court system. So what that would do is it would dump another 500,000, qualified, no criminal history people into the court system. So it just wouldn't be, not only would it not be sort of humane, but it also just would not be wise or good or economical for the country. So I'd like to just approach it from that angle so we can really be thinking about, what are the impacts of these decisions on all of us? Gotcha.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So basically, it's for the time being, we're at status quo. Nothing is going to happen. There's really nothing that this decision kicked in other than it's not going to, the program isn't going to expand. Do I have that right?
No, it definitely won't expand. And so what that looks like is that there are, a guesstimate is that there are, around 1 million dreamers who would qualify for the program, but never got granted the initial status. Okay. And so they are not going to be able to get into the program. But the ones who already do have work permits will be able to continue to renew. It's really important for them that they don't allow their status to lapse. They need to be applying to renew before the expiration of their current work permit so that they can stay in that renewal status.
Gotcha. All right. I think that clear. I get when we start talking about court issues and things that have been deferred, et cetera, my eyes kind of glaze over because I get so it's because the legal system, if anything, in this country is complicated. And it moves slowly, which, is good in some cases and bad in others. But it's, I think people that you gave a great description or a great explanation of what exactly is happening. So at least people, I think, have a broader understanding of it now. When is the next action on this? Would be anybody's guess, or do you have an idea?
It went to the Circuit Court of Appeals, which could occur before the end of this year. And then let's assume the Fifth Circuit affirms Hanen's decision, which it likely would, just because of how the court tends to rule. Then what would happen is the Biden administration would apply for certification before the Supreme Court next year in 2024. The court would likely take it up because this is such a big deal case, and then they would hear it in 2025. So what we're going to see is just a bunch of waiting while the court system, works it out. And I don't think anybody will be surprised when the Fifth Circuit rubber stamps Hanen's decision from yesterday.
Attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch over at Lincoln-Goldfinch Law in Austin. Appreciate your time and your insight on this afternoon. Thank you.